Okay. So hi everyone. Welcome to week 6. Thank you for coming. So I decided just tell me if you guys like it. Instead of putting a picture up, I'm going to talk about something that I found in the news related to sustainability. Um, and obviously there's a lot of very not fun stuff right now, so I'm going to try and keep it a little bit more lighthearted. Um, but I found this article that was talking about a bacteria on seaweed that was used to make a laundry detergent. I thought it was really cool. It was basically an enzyme that's really good at breaking down like this sticky material that's very similar to um, like a sticky material that's produced like from sweat and dirt, and so I just thought that was super cool. um, if anyone wants to see the article, definitely let me know. I can share it in the Slack later, but yeah. Okay, so our agenda pretty quick. We have the membership form. We just want to stress again, Shreya is going to talk about the format of the career fair, and then we have a couple alumni here, and we are going to, I don't want to call it a panel so much as just a casual discussion. But yeah, we will get to that. So I just highlighted this message because it's 2 messages up, which means you have no reason to not see it. Um, so please, 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 if you have not filled that out, please fill that out now. Also, PLs, make sure that all of your members are accounted for on this form. Otherwise, we don't know they exist. So please do that.
So for the sustainable companies, we're going to have 2 virtual career week events this fall rather than actually the in-person, just to minimize the contact from person to person. Week 1 is going to be this week, September 22nd, starting today from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. until this Friday on the 25th. And then week 2 is October 5th to 9th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So what I'm going to do over the next couple of slides is just discuss how these career weeks work and hopefully answer any questions that pop up through that. Sarah, could you go to the next slide? So first, the format of the career fair is kind of different from what we've normally experienced. We're going to have career tracks that each company is going to be assigned to. So say you have GE, they're going to be assigned to the engineering and manufacturing if they're looking for those jobs. They could also be in computing, but you want to go to whichever major that you are in. As you see, we have the list of tracks up here: business processes, computing, creativity, engineering, science, and research. And each company within these tracks will present in 50-minute time slots, and that's just going to be in their own format. We don't really have you go up and talk to a representative from the company. And the links to the employers are going to be in the Career Connect, and so we'll go through how to do that. Sarah, could you go to the next slide? Career Connect is different from the handshake. So first thing you want to keep in mind is you need to have a minimally complete profile. So your initial interests, your resume uploaded on there, and it doesn't have to be published, but I believe some of that information needs to be in there to even get to this page. And this is a home page of Career Connect. When you get there, you're going to see the information sessions in Career Week on the panel where I've labeled 1 here. When you click on that, the pop-up comes over here with the information session type, and you want to select Career Week. In that, you want to go down to your tracks and select your major: engineering, computing, business, whatever it's relevant to for your co-op. And then you don't have to select anything for the RSVP to the event. Most companies are saying you can join at any time, although RSVPing would help get the link. Lastly, with the keywords, if you have a specific company you are looking for, you might want to put that in there to narrow down your search a little more. For your checklist, when you're registering, you, as I've mentioned, should RSVP if you want the link available. Some companies have this on the page, but often they're choosing to email it to you instead. Also, just like a regular career fair, researching the company would be extremely important, because when you're going in, you're not going to have a chance to ask them about who they are or what they're doing. You want to know, because most of the time it's going to be a quick information session and maybe panels of discussion. So more information on that in the next slide. So this information is all from the career services and the co-op presentation that I had to attend last week. Each company will have their own format, which is extremely unlike the career fair. So it could be one-on-one, small group conversations, maybe a discussion about their interests before you have any of these conversations. But the key thing is that just like a career fair, you want to have your resume and your opening pitch ready and refined. Although you will not know which company you're going to, like what format each company is going to have when you're going into the meeting, you will have an expectation of just understanding that networking event, maybe they'll take attendance with the RSVP. And so some of the intent is the same as Career Week. The other thing that Career Services mentioned is that the prominent companies are not going to compete with each other. So say you have GE and Collins Aerospace, let's say. They're not going to be scheduled for the same time or the same day if they can do it. And you want to keep that in mind when you're looking for it. However, it is important to prioritize your companies because you can't get to everything at the same time with your classes. You're going to have to work that out with your class instructor, as was for the career weeks. Last thing to note is that the employers this career fair are going to be the different ones from what are going to be in October. You're going to have an entirely different set. So if you have an eye on a company, I would highly recommend going and networking with them this event, or you'll have to reach out to somebody on your own with LinkedIn or such. And then in terms of tips for just navigating the career fair, it is extremely important, and Career Services also highly recommends it, that you need to have your video on. It's a networking event anyway, so try to dress professionally and expect a large attendance. You might be in a waiting room, and that's just like a career fair where you'd have to wait in a line. So regardless of all of these changes, just understand that it's important to be optimistic. Even though this is an extremely unusual situation, don't be afraid to put yourself out there, and wish you the best of luck. Even if you're going for networking, this is a great opportunity.
Cool, thank you, Shreya. I'm curious, did anyone go today, and what was your experience with it like? I'm just curious. I know we have a couple people who are looking for co-op. Maybe they didn't go to, or maybe they're not here actually. Yeah, but I would be curious to hear even next week, like what your experience with this event was like. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I'm gonna try to stop sharing my screen. So that was really all we had regarding the career fair event itself. We kind of wanted to, so we have a couple alumni in here. We have Kira, Sebastian, and Chris, who are all ESW alumni and graduated 2 years ago, I think, or 3 years ago. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
2019. Okay. So I have a couple questions to kind of get us started, but anybody feel free to jump in. I will say personally, as I was writing these, I was writing them from more of a searching for a full-time job kind of perspective. So I probably won't have all the questions that someone looking for a co-op might want. So please feel free to jump in. But to get started, do you guys just want to give us like a little introduction? Maybe let's say what your major was, where you're working now.
Yeah, I can start that off. So I studied mechanical engineering, and I'm currently an analyst for Resource Recycling Systems. It's a sustainability consulting firm.
Hi, you guys. I'm Sebastian. I graduated last year with my BS in Electrical Mechanical Engineering Technology, which used to be the College of Applied Science and Technology. I know it changed. I forget what it changed to. But right now, I did Peace Corps, but then got evacuated due to COVID. And now I'm a research assistant and part-time student working for the Hawaii Natural Energy Institute, doing research into like renewable energy penetration into the grid, microgrids, battery storage, backups to replace diesel engines, kind of variety of things that I actually haven't sunken my teeth too deep into yet. But yeah, that's me.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris. I am a mechanical engineer graduate, and I'm currently self-employed as an entrepreneur and a writer.
Yeah, so just to start off, I kind of wanted to invite you guys because I know you all had very different paths, like once you left college, and then as I've like had some contact with you guys, I know you've gone in very interesting directions. But my first question, if I can get to it, is generally what did you think when you graduated? What was your plan going forward, and why were you thinking that?
I don't mind chipping in. Oh, Kira, did you want to go?
Go ahead. I'll follow up.
So I did all of my internships with GE Aviation. I knew they had like a GE Renewables business. So a big part of what I wanted to do was transition into like the manufacturing sector of wind turbines or something like that, trying to leverage my manufacturing co-op experience to get into like a sustainable job. As Kira can also maybe talk about, I did this climate reality leadership training related to the Climate Reality Project, which kind of opened my eyes to sustainability jobs across sectors, across disciplines. But I was also kind of thinking about international development and humanitarianism and how engineering can kind of rebuild sustainably in places that literally had all their infrastructure destroyed or taken away. Anyway, there's a lot around the SDGs that influenced where I wanted to go after graduating. Peace Corps personally was a bit of a shot in the dark and didn't quite land what I wanted, but yeah, I learned a lot, and it kind of helped me reorient things. And I would definitely say that co-ops help you get into the sector you want to get into, but you're by no means limited to manufacturing if that's all you get the opportunity to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring up co-ops, but I mean, my co-ops definitely did feed into, I mean, both what I didn't want to do for like design engineering, and then working for Bendix on their zero waste to landfill efforts, and just seeing, you know, a big corporation having the funds and having the potential to do good things with them definitely set me down the track more focused on environmental, social government, and just the role that companies can have, and wanting to have more of a widespread impact. So that put consulting on my radar, but honestly, my last semester, I put zero effort into looking for a job. At the time, my logic was, no, I want to leverage all I can being on campus because there's so many resources, so many projects going on. It's like, I want to have my impact here, and then I'll focus on getting a job. And I did that, and it definitely added an extra stress. I mean, I took a month or so to travel after graduation, and then I finally sat down to find a job and spent a few months sitting around looking. I got involved in volunteering though, and through a resource management team that's here locally in Ann Arbor where I'm at. One of those people, a director of the Ecology Center here, got me connected to RRS. So it was just through a common connection that they're like, hey, this would be a really good fit for you. So I more or less stumbled upon RRS. In the meantime, I had a 3-month stint in Kentucky working for Bendix again, and that was just good timing. They needed someone temporarily to fill in for an HSC role, and since I had a connection there already, it worked out that as my bank account was getting low and I still didn't have a job, that I could do that in the meantime. So things kind of just worked out. Is a little haphazardly. I would definitely recommend prioritizing job scouting while still utilizing all of what campus has to offer. But definitely, put yourself out there too. I mean, looking for a job and volunteering, it's like, well, I should be prioritizing figuring out my life. But I think those things overlap, and building a reputation for yourself.
So my story starts out pretty similar, where I had a bunch of manufacturing co-ops, and I knew that I didn't like it. So my plan right out of college was to try to find just anything in sustainability, and then I got a job in manufacturing. So that ended up being the best possible option at the time because spoilers, but COVID happened, so it was good for me to have some money while I'm sort of in interstitial space here. Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily helpful, but that's what I did.
Yeah, I'd add in too, like, I think that I've definitely followed the path of I want to work directly in something that's sustainable and working towards that as the primary goal. But even working for Bendix, I mean, they're a brake manufacturer, but their corporate level goals are mindful of sustainability. They're working for zero waste to landfill. So even though it's not like some of the engineers, they're not doing direct sustainability work, they're working for a company that's doing that. And like there's a green team, so they can still be involved. So I mean, obviously it's whatever works for you. Like if you want to be fully engaged in sustainability, do that, and don't settle for just an engineering gig. But if you love engineering, or if you love your marketing job, cater your passion for sustainability into that. I don't think they need to be mutually exclusive. Sorry, just had to chime in.
Yeah, I would also like to add that engineering and sustainability intersect a lot of different areas of just like society. And so there's definitely no reason that you should, I mean, I understand the market isn't as big as like a job market in manufacturing, but there's definitely programs for entry-level positions in the energy sector, or managing water, or in conservancy, or in health, or in other programs that focus on different aspects of like the Sustainable Development Goals, whether it's reducing poverty or tackling food insecurity in agriculture. I'm gonna throw some links into the chat here, because I do have to leave soon, and I just want to make sure these resources are shared. Oh, is that first one right? I think so. Anyway, I think the first one is like to get into like a newsletter, like an email newsletter. It's this guy named Ed, and he's great. Ed like shares these emails with all the latest and greatest fellowships, interns, jobs, learning resources. What's his full name? Ed something.
I know what you're talking about. It's very validating. I shared that at last week's meeting, but it's like Ed's
Okay.
sustainable mail
Ed
link. Yeah.
Carlin.
So
Mm-hmm. The second one is Sustainable Career Pathways. It's similar. It's just kind of like an online database of potential jobs. And then the last one is Dayaway Careers, which is actually like a corporate partner of ESW. And I've had multiple personal conversations with their executive director about how to, get a job in clean tech and, renewable energy business. And so I don't know what that would have looked like if I had known about these things earlier on in my like academic career. Um, but navigating those resources after the fact, even though I didn't have any direct experience in that field, there were still a lot of options open to me. And so um, when I was doing co-ops, I was just like, GE's paying me the most money and they keep paying me more money each time I come back. And so I was just like, I needed to pay for tuition and that was my priority. Um, I mean, I could still leverage that experience for my career, but don't feel like all hope is lost if you keep getting that manufacturing job. Like there's still plenty of options. Yeah.
It's actually great. You guys like lightly touched on pretty much every single one of my questions. So my second question, we kind of talked about this. I kind of specifically, Chris, you didn't talk about this, and I kind of think it would be interesting if you did. But my second question was just how did your plan out of college change or develop?
Sounds
Okay,
like Chris
I guess
is
that's on
queued
me.
up.
Yep. Fair enough. Yeah, so I guess for context, I ended up working for Corning right out of college. They're the big glass manufacturer in New York. But I was specifically in the sort of automotive focused part of it, which was just working on catalytic converters. So at first I really liked it. Gradually I stopped liking it just because it's just not a good fit for me because I don't like working in large companies or manufacturing, but we already covered that. So as this year started, I was already sort of planning to quit and start my own business. And then COVID sort of was an enzyme for that. A catalyst? Catalyst is a better word. So it's just a rolling ball. Things develop as they do, and I'm trying to roll with it as best I can. And definitely don't overlook opportunities when they come up. Make sure you think things through. I'm very happy where I am right now. I think I'm in a good place to continue to grow the business that I started, to continue with my career, but only because I was willing to take those risks. And yeah.
Can you talk more, just because I was kind of alluding to like what you and Gabe are trying to get started on. Can you just like talk about that a little bit?
Okay.
I'm sorry if I'm putting you on the spot. Definitely tell me to shut
No,
up.
it's fine. I'm supposed to be talking about this more. So the company that I started, it's called Owlfly. It is a sustainable technology company. So it's sort of taking what ESW does and just applying it in a marketable setting. So right now we're working on a couple of projects concurrently. We're working on a new design for a turbine. We're working with more algae materials because, of course. And
Well,
we're
hold on. Of course, I don't think anyone here knows what algae has to do with ESW.
okay. Sorry.
Algae has a lot to do with ESW.
Algae has a historic past.
So we did a couple of projects with algae while I was in ESW, which is, I guess, before all your times. I'm so old. We did some bioluminescence research, which didn't really go anywhere, but then we also did a bunch of sort of paper making research using filamentous green algae as a substitute for wood pulp. And that's what we're still running with. So we have all these projects going on concurrently. Again, I don't know whether this is going to work or not, but I figured this is the time to try it. So I will come back and tell you whether or not it is a viable business.
I'm gonna come back and hire everyone.
Yep, we have a website now, so you can check the hiring page. It'll be a year or so before we're at that point.
Sorry, folks, I gotta go. But if anyone has questions about like energy sector, engineering, policy, economics, and how I'm trying to navigate that space, I just put my email in the chat and feel free to email me. Yeah. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. And I will definitely stick everything in the chat on the channel after this meeting. Okay. So again, we kind of touched on this. I kind of wanted to know what were your co-op experiences like, which we've kind of talked about, but what would you have done differently, or what else would you have looked at different, tried to apply for different jobs? Would you have, just generally, what would you have done differently?
It's kind of a tough one. I mean, my first co-op, I didn't really fully dig into it, but was with Volvo Construction Equipment. And honestly, like, I'm still in touch with my boss that I had there, and still have a really good connection to the team I had there. I was working on paver tractors, which was super random, essentially like the tractors used to pave roads. And I've actually referenced some of the skills into some of my work now is discussing recycled content in roads. So it's kind of circling back. So even though that was just a design engineering position that wasn't up my alley, I don't know that I fully regret it or would necessarily change anything with it, because I think no matter what experience you have, you can find a way to reference it. So it's still kind of coming back and helping me. Same with Bendix. I mean, ending up in the middle of Kentucky definitely wasn't on my radar, or working in health and safety. But again, like they're the sustainability director there. I also could have stayed with them on them expanding their global carbon neutrality effort. So I don't know that I would change the co-ops that I had. I think I do wish I found sustainability consulting sooner. Once I started the climate reality program that Sebastian mentioned, opened a lot of networks that were more directly sustainable mindful and working in sustainability. But I do think that working in the other sectors gives you the perspective to realize that, you know, sustainability goes across all of these. It doesn't have to be, you know, its own silo. So I don't know if that really was the answer you wanted, but.
I mean, nothing is completely legitimate.
Speak for yourself. Some of us are trying really hard over here. Yeah, this is a difficult question because I don't know that I would have been able to get any other co-ops than the ones that I did, because like my GPA was okay, but it wasn't stellar. So it's hard to say what would have happened if I didn't get the ones that I did.
Yeah, I think if I did have to reflect on something, it would just be prioritizing looking for stuff a little bit deeper. I definitely tend to prioritize a lot of ESW stuff before necessarily like my own career. But I think a lot
Which
of
is
that
good. Like you can apply that stuff.
Exactly. I mean, I've totally leveraged work with ESW and like interviews and stuff, and even some of my work now was like, oh, well, this person's working on this, I know them from ESW, so it definitely comes back around.
Well, when you guys were applying, did you like really focus on like a couple of like companies, like you wrote a cover letter for them, you sent it in with your resume, or did you just like span your resume over everything and not really like focused, or do you gotta like find a balance in between?
I was really picky. I went through and looked for, you know, what companies have some sort of sustainability commitment. Is it just like a report saying like, oh yeah, we do stuff, or are they actually following through on their commitments? So I was definitely being picky in that front, and in terms of what the positions were too. I was like getting into a few months into not having a job after college. It was like, well, this is getting old. And I definitely lowered my expectations. And I think that's where just the personal network and building connections locally helped. But yeah, I would keep your standards high, and like do quality applications too, because I think those are going to stand out more.
On the other hand, I definitely spent a lot more time trying to apply to the companies that I actually wanted to work for, but my application sort of followed an exponential curve as I got more and more desperate, as I'm sure some of you probably understand. So usually by the time I get to about 70 or so, I hear back from at least one. And at that point, like,
Yeah, I totally advocate for doing the follow-up. Like, my first co-op came from the career fair, talking to them, and I didn't hear back for interview day, but they had contacted me beforehand, like, hey, show up to our table. So I had the contact of the recruiter, and I called them. I was like, hey, my schedule is free at this time. I didn't hear from you, but, and I actually ended up getting like a 10-minute interview in between their schedule that I wouldn't have normally gotten. And I got the deal. So put yourself out there, make them know you're serious.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So another question that, again, you guys kind of talked about, and Kira, I actually shared last week the spreadsheet that you made when you were in ESW of like all the sustainability companies at the career fair, which I have definitely used and I have found to be super useful. But I wanted to ask, what resources did you use both to get co-ops and to get jobs after college?
What types of resources?
I mean, online, kind of Sebastian was mentioning Day Away and that mailing list. I'm also thinking in terms of people.
Yeah, I mean, the job side, I scrounged every job website, right? I would filter through, environmental, anything, sustainability, anything, engineering, going through all those keywords on job sites. Indeed was a popular one for me. But in terms of building the local connection, which I think was a bit more important, was connecting to like the local climate reality chapter, the Citizens Climate Lobby chapter, the resource management team. I connected with the group that did a pilot for composting in the area for food waste collection. So just getting involved in the networks that I wanted to be a part of. Even digging around the local city has just passed their carbon neutrality plan. So I got involved in trying to get those things passed. And I think just putting yourself out there, that helped me the most. Mostly because it's still helping me, because now I have those connections when I need things for my real job. Those are already built. So.
I think, well, I got my job out of RIT, like professional job, not co-op, from Handshake. And then I got one before that from, I think I just gave my resume to my academic counselor, and they were able to find something, which was cool. Yeah, I agree with Kira. Just, you're gonna have to look at a lot of different places.
I'm also totally a huge fan of scrolling LinkedIn. If you scroll Facebook, make the transition, whether it's cool things, interesting engineering is a cool thing to follow. But I think that's where you can just discover like, oh, this is a cool business, or like, that's cool technology, or if someone posts an article about a company doing something, or something that got designed, materials implemented, then you can start looking into that company and see what they offer. Like that list Sarah's talking about, it makes me really happy that it's being used, but a lot of that was just digging around, right? So nearly every company right now is doing some sort of check the box of like, oh yeah, we're mindful of the environment. I think a lot of it's bullshit, just to, check the box and cover their ass. But a lot of that can shed light into, if they're at least heading that direction, or, if it's an engineering company or a corporation, that maybe they are just checking the box, but it probably means they have some sort of green team. So even if you do just want to focus on engineering and keep, sustainability as your parallel hobby or whatever it may be, those types of companies will probably have those for you.
Yeah, and that's another thing we talked about last week was trying to identify who is a fashionably green company versus like a truly sustainable company, which I personally thought was a really interesting conversation. Before I forget it, I also, when I was writing that question, I was kind of thinking about, and you guys actually might be able to speak better to this than I, but I know Sebastian was working a lot with Sarah Brownell as a fifth year, and I know our Haiti Arborloot team, that's your kind of like the customer for this for that project. So, and actually also, John, your project, the I don't remember the name of it, but so we actually have two projects with the customer as someone who's a great resource for a past ESW member. So anyone you come into contact with at RIT through ESW is a potentially really good source for networking.
For sure. I was actually reaching out to Noblehurst Farms this week. So they are the anaerobic digester that a lot of RIT food waste goes to. And we had a few people get a tour there, and they also donated some IBC tanks to the rainwater collection system at First Market Farm. So I was actually reconnecting with them this week on a completely unrelated topic, but it was a really nice connection to have in my back pocket. And the only reason I had it was because of ESW.
Okay. Kind of talked about this. I want to ask, what are the most valuable skills, or what are the skills you've accumulated that you use in your job, or that you use to get a job, or that you use, in Chris's case, to create your own business and just to further your career, I guess, as a general term. Chris, I know you have like 5,000 skills.
Mastery of none.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I mean, I feel like I'm beating the dead horse, but I think building the network and connections is, an oversaid one, but I think really important. I was actually told a few weeks ago I should really focus in on what I want to do. So I think I've fallen on the track of being kind of spread out and being able to, jack of all trades, master of none, as Chris is saying. But I think recognizing that is a good skill. Chris, maybe you have more to add.
Yeah, sure. This is going to sound a little bit cheesy, but I think the just being able to be a project leader through ESW was the most valuable experience that I had in preparing me for what I'm currently doing and what I've done in the past. It all comes down into play. You have to juggle finances, whether it's for your company or for yourself. You have to be able to manage people. Again, whether you're in a company or by yourself. And you have to be able to make compromises. And these are incredibly valuable life skills that you really got to learn while you're in school. It'll help you so much.
I would definitely second that. I think it's very interesting. My job has really low expectations when I first started here. I mean, they think their lower new staff is like just dumb. So being able to have some of the project management skills and even just being competent with Excel, their expectations are really low.
Not too competent in Excel. There is such a thing as being too competent in Excel. I fell into that trap. Sorry.
But either way, I mean, if people have low expectations and you can exceed those, you're going to stand out. So, sorry if there's background.
Okay, we're getting towards the end, so I would definitely encourage, if anyone has questions, please ask them, because I'm running low on mine. And also, I mean, as I said before, these haven't been super co-op focused, which I know is kind of the point that everyone's kind of worried about right now. So please feel free to ask questions. Again, we kind of talked about this, but what was your experience specifically trying to find a job in sustainability? I know, Kira, we talked like quite a while ago about struggling to find sustainability focused jobs at the career fair. So just in general, did you struggle to find sustainability focused jobs for your major or for what path you wanted to go down?
I mean, in my case, I definitely didn't really utilize the career fair for all that it offers, just mostly because of that. And I did want to prioritize being strictly in sustainability rather than just having it just accompany what I was doing. So I did kind of find that having the mechanical engineer label channeled me into that. And it was just assumed that like, oh, she just does mechanical engineering, which I think a lot of people have a very narrow view of too. So in terms of wanting to be more focused in sustainability and engaging people and climate action, I felt like I had to kind of recraft what that meant. Like even my firm has a more engineering focus with redesigning MRFs. So, you know, making sure that doing flow studies through MRFs, how materials go through, the layout, the equipment design and everything. And initially getting hired, I was definitely getting channeled into the path, which is really cool. And I would totally get into it, but it wasn't my main priority. So I felt a little, I guess, restricted by the label, but I think you can leverage it too, because also, you know, any engineering degree or any degree has some sort of, you know, reputation with it. So I think as I was introducing myself to networks, it was like, oh, she's a mechanical engineer, it's respectable. So I think it could go either way, but in terms of finding those companies, I think it was just digging around, like, what's happening, following LinkedIn, following different tags of, you know, oh, recycling, circular economy. And then those companies kind of found me, as opposed to using the career fair of, you know, the top, you know, 500 large companies that, you know, have enough money to go to the career fairs, right? So I think it's also figuring out, you know, do you want to work for a huge company, or are you willing to work for a startup that can't pay for career fairs?
Yeah, to answer your question, I don't have an answer. I have never been able to work for a sustainability company in engineering. The best I've ever done in that realm is just to give up and create my own, which is not necessarily the best option for everybody. So yeah, I don't know, it's really hard. Very few people are able to do it within their first or second co-op, but you will get there eventually if that's what you want to do.
Also, something I mentioned that I swear everything I know I pulled from old ESW members. But I remember when I was talking to Bree, another alumni, about she had just gotten a job at Harris. She said to me, you kind of have to think about, do you want to work for the sustainability company and have some impact, but that work is already being done? Or do you want to work at the kind of unsustainable company and make a bigger impact with like kind of smaller things can potentially have a bigger impact at a company that's doing nothing.
Yeah, I had some of those same dilemmas as I was searching for a job. It was like, which, you know, where do I want to focus? I think one of my conclusions was that some of the companies that aren't thinking in that space are also going to have cultures that are more restrictive to engaging that and welcoming it. Even Bendix, I mean, they had their corporate goals for sustainability, but that didn't trickle down to their manufacturing workers at all. So it needed to be a full culture shift, even with the corporate support behind it. But I do think advocating, like, for whatever company you work for, it's totally worth advocating. And, you know, if there's not already some green team or group started within your group, pull together employees who all share the passion and push for that. So I think that's a really good point, Sarah.
I have a question about sustainable consulting. I was just wondering like what it is and what you do in it.
Yeah, so it's really broad, which sustainability is, which I'm not preaching to the choir here. But RRS itself is much more focused in the recycling world. Not necessarily like our common curbside recycling. I mean, we tinker in that too, but it's more so supporting the recyclers and the supply chain side. So ensuring that all those plastic bottles that get collected on curbside have an end market, and they're going into not just any end market. They're not just gonna not just gonna be glass going into landfill cover. It's going to be glass being upcycled into insulation or glass back to glass. So it's much more holistic. RS is set up in different hubs. So I'm in the Renew Hub, which is very focused on creating positive messaging around sustainability. And right now we just helped launch Next Cycle Michigan, which there's a Colorado Next Cycle as well, which is all about incubation around solutions to help recycling in a circular economy. So there's a huge variety of projects you can work on. We also have our corporate sustainability. I mean, some of that's working with doing waste assessments with companies for here's the strategy of how you can be zero waste. A lot of it's setting up the groundwork for groups to run with things. So when they don't have the expertise to figure out how do we get, we know we want to be zero waste, or we know we want to, help support recycling, they just don't know how to get there. Consultants usually have that expertise to navigate that. Or maybe it's, we have another repurpose hub, and that's one that focuses on material recovery facilities, which is where recycling goes to get sorted. So they're the engineers that know how all the technology works, how all the equipment connects together, how it can be as efficient as possible, how new items can be sorted, or maybe if a curbside program should exclude a certain item because the technology can't sort it. But it's very widespread. There's another sustainability consulting firm that had interests me that's in California, and they're more focused on zero waste and like event planning to be zero waste, and being sustainable on more of the marketing side. But, did that answer your question?
If I may jump in real quick here, sorry. More broadly, consulting just means that your company is providing services to a different company. So however that relates to sustainability, it's, like Kira said, very broad.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest dilemmas with it is that you can figure out like the best solution ever, and they can take it or leave it, right? So they just hired you to do the grunt work, figure things out, give your best form of expertise, and maybe it doesn't get funded. Maybe they're only going to nitpick certain aspects of it, not the full thing. So I think that's where maybe with anything, don't be too attached to a certain project or things you're working on, because they'll develop, which maybe it's for the best that things change in your projects. But I think that's the biggest thing with consulting is it's what the client wants.
Yeah, thanks. That answered my question.
Sorry. I think it's also cool to hear about, like, Kira, there's a large variety of what like you do at your company, because typically when I hear engineering consulting, I always think of renewable energy and like facilities management type work, but it's really cool and at least for me personally, those two areas are not really my cup of tea, but it's nice to see that there's like a wide range of work you can do within engineering consulting for sustainability.
Even one of my coworkers actually brought up today, he used to be a consultant that the EPA relied on a lot, and he was part of the Kuwait oil fields when they were on fire and 600 were burning. He was part of the team that evaluated like the environmental impacts in Kuwait and everything. So there is huge variety in what you can do. I feel like one thing I missed with engineering is, you learn about the full system and the different components. Like when you're talking about a wind turbine, you don't necessarily, you talk about how it works, how it operates. You don't necessarily think about like, well, someone's manufacturing those turbine blades, those materials are coming from somewhere, someone's installing them, someone's marketing it, and realizing that there's jobs in every part of that too. So even if you're not just like a wind turbine installer, you could be supporting that industry, or even on the policy side. So I would encourage you to be open-minded in the job search too.
Okay, I think I hit all my questions. Does anyone else have anything? We're close to the end time anyway, but. All right, cool. Well, thank you guys for coming. I personally learned a lot. This was very, very educational for me. And it was also just great to see you guys. But thank you guys so much. This meeting will be recorded and posted to YouTube if anyone wants to go back and hear anything again. I'm also going to take everything that's in the chat and post that in our Slack channel. So yeah, thank you everybody for coming.
Thanks for setting this up, Sarah.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, it's so great to be at a ESW meeting again.
You can come every week, right?
Nobody got time for that.
I'll
got a lot
let
of
do
stuff
it.
going on.
No
offense.
So yeah, also like Sebastian said, feel free to reach out. I put my email in the chat as well.
I will also probably at you three in the Slack channel. I don't know how much you guys look at it anymore, but just heads up. Cool. All right, thank you everybody.
See ya.
Back.
Thank you.
Stay safe.